Don't worry, after this session we will have a tea break. So
Hello.
नींद आ रही होगी तो उड़ा देंगे. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Next session is going to talk. We are going to talk about adopted agile for AI ML
Hello.
application
Can you hear me?
development by Ashwinee Singh.
Hello.
Ashwini, are you with us?
Okay. Thank you.
Done?
All right. Yeah.
Okay,
I think
great.
I'm ready.
Maybe now we can move the Slido. That's fine. Okay, so let me introduce Ashwini Singh. Ashwini is a seasoned digital transformation leader with 23 years of industry experience. He has been leading and contributing to some of the large scale agile DevOps transformation for Fortune clients across the globe. So, welcome Ashwini, all yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get started. So I'm here to share our experience of applying Agile for development of AI ML applications. It's not probably the best way or the de facto way. It's more about how do you experiment, how do you see what works, what doesn't work for us, right? So I'll just make that as a disclaimer. You may decide to choose if you want to. There's no one right way to crack it. All right. So I think my introduction has already been done. We can quickly skip this over, and let's see what I plan to cover in this session. A little bit about AI revolution, although I think pretty much everyone is well versed these days about AI. All right. We'll go from there, trying to understand what are the typical challenges and where Agile may fit possibly, what kind of solution Agile might offer building ML applications. And then we'll go about sharing our experience. When I say our, so I represent UST, US Technologies. We are a mid-size IT solution or digital transmission solution company headquartered in US, and we have various offices across world. So 25 plus countries we operate from in India. We have office next to this premise in Sai Radhe complex as well in On. And we have our specialty organization as Observer, who are specialists in developing AI ML applications and data science. So we have experimented our approach of developing ML applications. That's what I'm going to share here. And then a little bit about what are the DevOps and ML Ops model approach. All right, so let's get started. I just plugged in this slide because this is the latest most catchy slide I've seen, or most catchy news I've seen lately. Probably you guys might have seen this. This is a blog post by Bill Gates. I hope everyone knows Bill Gates. He doesn't need an introduction. So this is his own blog post, and look at the date. This is just March 21, hardly a week ago. So the impact of AI is so profound that a lot of thought leaders in industry have been writing about it, talking about it. The age of AI has begun. And you can definitely go and read more about it, but the essence of it is highlighted in his one-liner below this blog post. AI is as revolutionary as mobile phones and internet. We all know the revolution we are going through. Everyone, pretty much every one of you are using a smartphone, right? So not only mobile phone, but a smartphone, which has taken further that revolution, which has started. What all we can do using our smartphones. So we all know, we are already experiencing it, and the journey has just begun. There are more sophisticated usage of smartphones, and internet revolution started more than a decade or roughly 2 decades ago. We all know that we are living in the digital age thanks to internet. Yeah. So if those changes have such a profound effect across the world, just imagine what kind of profound effect AI would have, right? So that's how profound this revolution is, and it's just begun. So journey has just started. Some other excellent quotes from, or I'll say profound quotes from some of the industry leaders, that predicting the future is not magic. It is artificial intelligence, by Dave Waters. AI is the new electricity. Again, that's how profound industry thought leaders find AI. Equivalent to the kind of revolution which electricity has brought in. We are aware of the different industry revolutions, right? There have been 4 different industry revolutions. So electricity has triggered industrial age. If you look at other quotes by Sundar Pichai, artificial intelligence, one of the most profound things we are working on as humanity. It is more profound than fire or electricity. In fact, Sundar Pichai takes it to the next level beyond what Andrew and GS said. Probably even more profound. And Gartner, very important to know, many of the audience here probably are managers and leaders. So what does Gartner say about AI? So Gartner is very pragmatic. AI may not replace managers, and this debate just keeps going on. Whether AI is going to replace our jobs, is AI going to eat our jobs? If you are very well versed with what's happening in news media, I think about 2 days ago, Goldman Sachs has published some kind of report or analysis that almost 1.2 million jobs globally might be taken up by AI. So there are various different surveys, there are different reports and all. Without going into too much of it, whether it's going to eat up our job or not, but let's take a pragmatic look what Gartner has said. AI may not replace managers, but will replace managers who don't know AI by those who know AI. And that absolutely is bang on. Even not only for managers, I think that's going to be true for any IT professional eventually going forward. So not knowing AI may not be an option for us. How do we apply? Of course, that will vary from our context to context. All right, so without spending too much time on this, these are just some of the industry adoption trends of AI. Just to indicate how fast it is accelerating its adoption across industry. Some of the charts, so you may or may not be able to read where I've got it, but I'll highlight it. This is from IBM's Global AI Adoption Index 2022 report. Every year and IBM does publish this kind of reports, which is kind of referred by a lot of industry thought leaders and organizations. So as you can see, this is across countries, the adoption rate. And I've seen the trend in past few years. The changes in the adoption has been mind-boggling. Even if you look at some countries have been leading this clearly. So China, for example, has been leading this race for quite a long time. However, there are other countries like India which are catching up very fast. If you look at 2 years ago, India was nowhere near there, but now India is almost coming close to China. And this is a trend change you see in 2022 report. Yeah. And across countries, so there are new entrants also, Latin America also, which was not there a few years ago, they have been catching up. So pretty much countries, pretty much different organizations across industries are putting in effort to adopt AI, right? And this is across industry, different type of automobile industry and large companies and all. Without going too much in detail about it, just to give you an indication that AI is here to stay. And it is definitely getting adopted everywhere. Yeah. So how does it relate to our session topic? Because although we are talking about the previous slide so far talks about adopting AI, and adopting AI doesn't essentially mean that AI is working well for you. These are two different things. We are trying to adopt. So any new thing we are trying to adopt. You know, your parents might be trying to learn how to use a smartphone, but I'm sure you'll have your own experiences whether they really know how to optimally use a smartphone. May not be. Using a WhatsApp is one part of it, but then are you capable to use all the capabilities or functionalities of a device or a tool like a smartphone? May not be, right? So that's a different ball game. And how do you use for your business success? Now we are talking about organizations. Our context is how organizations and companies can use AI for their business benefits. So that's a different ball game. They are definitely experimenting. They are trying to adopt. So there are two different bar charts here. One is whoever have already deployed AI, okay, in the bold font, and those above are who are exploring AI, the above one. So exploring AI is still fine. That means they're experimenting with AI. But even those who are deployed, who claim to have deployed AI, are they really reaping the benefits which they have set out for at the first place? So that's a different ball game. That's what I'm trying to understand and maybe discuss it, bring it up in this forum. These are some statistics again from industry. So Gartner says 85% of all AI projects will fail to deliver outcomes in 2023. Isn't it startling, revealing? So many organizations across countries, across geographies trying to adopt AI. Everyone wants to take a pie of AI, and not for heck of AI. I mean, it's a buzzword probably, but why do you adopt AI? For some benefits, right? So the key question is this able to deliver you the benefits for which you are experimenting, or you're just doing it for the heck of it? So these statistics are very revealing. Mid-Sloan Management Review, MIT SMR, keeps publishing their very famous management report. So they have also highlighted that 70% of companies report minimal to no impact from AI. Very, very startling fact. Yeah. Again, SMR mentioned that less than 2 out of 5 companies reported business gains in last 3 years. These are as late as last year's reports. And you can always Google it. There are a lot of information which is available on Forbes.com. Most of the information I pulled up, everything is available in public domain. So you guys, if you're interested to read more about it, you can definitely go and refer it. Yeah. Then VentureBeat, 87% of data science projects never make it to production. And we're not talking about ideally. In a normal scenario, it should be the other way around. We know that we all, probably most of us or all of us are IT professionals. We have worked in so many projects across our career. You know, not every project is successful. Let's admit it, right? Even with Agile, we are here to learn, and we are probably all the Agile enthusiasts, but even all Agile projects may not have given you the results which you have set it up for. However, in a normal scenario, your ratio should be like 80% works well and 20% fails, yeah? More or less. 80-20 rule, we always say. This is indicating almost opposite. That's why these trends are very, very concerning. 99% of internal AI projects fail. So what it indicates is there's a lot of great enthusiasm about adopting Agile. No question about why to adopt Agile. Why to adopt AI? But the point is, are we adopting it? Are we trying to implement AI in the right way? Is it really giving the benefits? So what we have tried to do is we have further dig down in what are the causes of AI projects to fail. Okay, again, a lot of industry research and collaborating with our industry partners and all. So these are some of the key pointers which has come up. If you look at other surveys and all, there might be some similar pointers, some different pointers coming up. But for the sake of this session and our experience sharing discussion, this summarizes the key reasons why we believe AI projects are failing. Again, not a comprehensive list. You can't really put all the reasons on one slide. Yeah. Applying application development approaches to data-centric AI. One of the oftenly cited common cause of why AI projects are not reaping the benefits, because you know you have to adopt AI, but is your practice to build AI application, AI ML application, the right practice how you're building it? You're probably applying the typical software development, application development practices as it is trying to build AI ML application, and that's not helping. Lack of sufficient quantity of data, lack of sufficient quality of data. Data related causes are oftenly most cited reasons of failure of AI ML applications. Lack of planning for continued AI model data integration. So I'm not reading each of them one by one. I'll be just conscious of time. We don't have too much of time, and we had too much of experience to share. So I've just highlighted few of the very relevant ones in bold related to quality of data, quantity of data, and lack of planning for continued AI model data iteration. Very common causes of failure. Okay. Let's see so how it has helped us in trying to experiment our own ways of building AI ML application. And before I go down there, again, one more survey which we have referred is IBM's AI adoption. So key reasons again oftenly cited by IBM is lack of clarity on provenance of training data, lack of collaboration and monitoring of AI across cloud, and lack of AI policies. Again, IBM had their own survey and research done with some of their partners, and this is their summary. So we have tried to factor in those causes so that we don't end up falling into the same trap which others have done, not able to reap the benefits of AI. So our approach has been, or before I go down there, let me highlight what we acknowledged as what's so different with developing AI solution. Let's acknowledge it for a while before we jump to the solution. We are still analyzing the problem space, which is why AI projects have not been giving the results by and large. Yeah, high degree of unpredictability and too many unknowns. Key focus remains on data exploration and insight generation rather than application development. Okay, proof of concept prototype results may vary from results of real world project. Very true, and this is startling for all of us who are from software engineering background. This will be very startling because we have learned to build our premise. It has been our fundamental premise that we will experiment, we'll do a POC, when we'll see, we'll learn the lessons, and then we'll apply it in a large scale project. And that always worked. But that's not what you actually get to make it work in when you're developing an AI ML application. And I'll try to highlight few high level reasons, not in detail because we have very less time, why it happens. And then complex set of skill requirements. You might have heard it, or you might already be experimenting with it. So many different type of skills: data analyst, expert analyst, data engineer, data scientist, data science lead, product manager, UX designer, blah, 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 ML engineer, etc. And a complex set of skills which are required. Highly evolving and exploratory nature. That's the problem nature itself, the realm in which you're trying to develop ML application. It is evolving and exploratory, not very predictive. Defining problem and approach is complex and hard to define as a process, highly data intensive, as most time goes in data engineering, feature and exploration. And this is one of the very, very important reasons which we have accounted while building our approach. I'll just come to it little later. High dependency on data quality and sufficiency. Development methods built on applying business rules do not work. Again, very revealing for us because we have been tuned to, when we have been doing software development, we have been tuned to understand the underlying business rules. You're trying to develop solution software for business problems to cater to business problems, right? Then our approach used to be understand the business rules and then let's create our software solution to cater to those business rules, right? That's not how it works easily when you're developing an ML application. AI project success requires planning for continuous management. Again, this has been often an area which has been overlooked or under paid attention in early part of ML application development, which has caused a lot of failures. Okay, so let's going quick, importance of working with data. So we have seen in common causes, data, so many times, everything related to data, quality of data, quantity of data, understanding the data. Cognitive Analytica again is a very famous research firm, has done a lot of good analysis to come up with these statistics. That percentage of time allocated to machine learning project tasks, again, just look at data cleansing, it seems to be taking such a long time. This is the entire time what you spend in building a ML model, machine learning model. But look at the actual ML model tuning and model training and all hardly takes much time, not even 1/3 of the time, close to 1/4 of the time of the total time what you're taking. The rest of the majority of time goes in data cleaning, data labeling, data augmentation, etc., etc. And then good enough time goes into aggregation and data identification. Lot of things. So this, starting from here to here, it is all related to data. Just look at it, almost 75+% of your time which you have spent in building machine learning model has gone into just dealing with data. That's how profound or important it is. So 80% of time enterprises spend on AI projects goes toward preparing, cleaning and labeling data. So if you don't do this well, you're bound to fail. That's the inference. It was loud and clear. So how to learn from data? I'll create a very simplistic view. We're not here to learn ML development and all. That's not what is possible to cover in such a small session. But in a nutshell, when you talk about machine learning model, it is about leveraging data with appropriate algorithms which have to be continuously trained so that you generate some meaningful model. Okay, That's in very simplest term which we can explain to anyone, so that you understand the next concepts which you are trying to cover up. So the very starting approach to build machine learning models started with something called as CRISP-DM. This is an industry-wide consortium, been there for more than 2 decades. They had this kind of approach, okay? And although, as I mentioned, more than 2 decades old, it hasn't gone outdated fully. It has evolved over a period of time. So we also kept this as the very basic reference model while we started experimenting how do you go about building machine learning model. So it all starts with business understanding, then you spend time in data understanding, data preparation, then you go about building the model which has to be evaluated continuously, and then go for deployment. In fact, this is how we started with this reference model. Most of the organizations like IBM, Microsoft have their own point of view around CRISP-DM. And this is how it goes elaborated. I think we can skip it. This is just to indicate that there are a lot of things which are required in each of those phases. Although they sound like phases, and they were actually phases when this model was published more than 2 decades ago, it was pretty much a waterfallish model. So the question which might come into all of your mind is, then why are we learning this when this subject is about Agile? Yeah. So what we are going to highlight is how we have experimented with this and tried to apply Agile practices over a period of time, making that model the method of building ML model around CRISP-DM. We have experimented. We have referred few other models like IBM DES, which is very similar, that you ingest the data, you do the training, you actually do a lot of processing on data, and then deployment, and then monitoring and publishing, right? So I'm not going too much in detail on this, but I'll spend more time in our approach, which I'll talk about in next few slides. This is how we got inspiration, or we got some references to look at what others in the industry have been doing. So this is again from Microsoft. So previous slide I talked about IBM. So this is Microsoft's approach, how they have been trying to build, and more Agile approach over a period of time. More than 2 decades ago, when CRISP-DM came into picture, it was all purely waterfallish, the strict phases, and you can go back. But then they started getting into more Agile approach, that you can go from each stage to another stage, go back and forth to iterate many times till you are able to have the right models in place which can be deployed fully. Okay. So challenges. Now what challenges? Although it has been mentioned that many industry leaders like IBM, Microsoft have been experimenting with their own version, Agile versions of building ML applications. What are the common challenges they have been facing, and even we have been facing when we started experimenting? We could not leverage empirical data for estimation. Remember, Agile relies on empirical data for estimation. But the way machine learning model looks at data and leverages data is not from empirical standpoint. And that's what makes us difficult to apply, especially Scrum kind of model. If you have to go about estimating, you can't really estimate because there is no empirical data. The empirical data, it's not that you can't have it. It won't be valid for taking inferences because there's so many factors on which it depends. Your data keeps changing. Your training, what kind of training you have done on top of that data, there are so many factors which comes together. That's why a model is a combination of what data set you have used at one point in time, what algorithm have you used at that point in time, plus what training it has gone through. It's a combination of all of that. One parameter you change, it's going to change the end result, the model. So that's how complicated it is. AI projects do not follow linear predictable development. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And it is more stochastic, as we talk about. It's not a definitive that you do this and then you're going to get this result or output. Okay. That's where we have a lot of challenges. You can't even forecast number of tasks easily. So you can't really do a sprint planning per se. Sprint planning requires you that you at least understand whether it's a 1 week sprint, 2 week sprint, what are the different type of stories or tasks you will have at your disposal, and then you go about estimating it based on the empirical data. Neither you have empirical data to rely on, nor you have handle on tasks which you can predict which has to be worked in the next iteration. Okay, So it doesn't apart. Even time boxing won't work because of the nature of work. Some of the tasks takes too long time, some of the other tasks might take shorter time, and it's not predictable. So you can't even time box that, okay, after 1 week of a sprint, this is what we can deliver, or after 2 weeks of a sprint, this is what we can deliver. It's just not something which works. There are organizations we have experimented with. I'll try to just give a high level view in the next slide, but it hasn't given the results. ML modeling is stochastic, as I mentioned, right, where the outcomes are characterized as probabilities and not by the end outcomes. Success of measure is hard. Why we say that? Success of measure is hard. You might say a working model is a success for ML application, but not that easy, right? There could be a lot of working model which you are building through your ML application development, but not all working models will give you the intended business outcomes. Even deliverables, a lot of organizations just think, or a lot of I think practices believe that your end deliverable in ML application development is nothing but a model, but that's not true, because model is just an interim deliverable. Ultimately, you have to be able to meet your business outcomes, and that's where the challenge starts. Okay. So this is again one industry viewpoint about how to go about applying Agile Scrum for building machine learning models. This is called as datadrivenscrum.com. You can go and read this all. I've just taken up this picture from their site. Some of the good things we learned from this is, yes, it helps having a clear understanding of different roles. Remember, one of the pain areas or the challenges when I summarize from, I think, Cognite Analytica and IBM's survey reports is, there have been challenges related to the roles and all, who's going to do what and all. So those have been the causes of failure of AI projects also. So having good understanding, good clear definitions of roles definitely helps. They have taken a good stand at defining the roles. Process expert, product owner, data scientist, software engineer also, as well as data analyst and data scientist. Okay. So a good view on the roles. Where it didn't work well is they have been trying to fixate their iteration length. You can choose, pick and choose iteration. The moment you say that I have an iteration to deliver, or or we as a team are going to finish our work in this iteration, that's where the challenge starts in ML application development, because it's hard to predict what are you going to achieve by end of iteration, whether it's 1 week or 2 weeks. Even if you make it flexible, and the moment you make it a flexible iteration, it loses its core purpose. Okay, so this is where that area where it hasn't really worked well. And so it has mixed results. Again, we learned from it because the role part was good. So this is our first stab at what we started putting up in place. And we had to do a lot of trial and error experimentation, right? So what we learned is that this, you can realize now, this is very similar to CRISP DM, which I've shown. More than 2 decades old model, but it is still point of reference or inspiration for everything and anything being done in an agile way under data science realm, still currently. But it needs to be adopted. You can't use it as it is. So what adaptation we have seen, you can see that a lot of loops back and forth. Everywhere you will have an opportunity to go back and forth, right? Which is very important in agile way of working. You can't have fixated phases that after this phase you go into next phase and you can't come back. Data preparation, if it's not up to mark, it's not up to mark. You have to go back to go to data understanding again and then make sure that it is up to mark. Data understanding is correctly done. Then only you go about doing data preparation. And you can start appreciating some of the agile practices we have seen working well in our experience, like definition of ready. So we have evolved our own definition of ready for data preparation phase over a period of time. You need to know when do you say that your data is ready to be fed into ML model. You can't keep doing this forever. This is very important phase. We all understand it. We have seen those previous slides. Spending time on data, dealing with data takes more significant time, but there has to be an acceptance criteria, or you say that now we are ready, right? What your definition of ready is. So you need to come up with your own definition of ready. That is what takes experience, experiment, but come up with it eventually so that you are able to reach this stage at the earliest, and then you get into AI modeling. Similarly, once you're developing the models, you're putting it for evaluation, you might go back and forth, but before you go about deploying, you should be very clear about what is your definition of done. Then only you say this model meets my expectation, it is helping us meet our business objectives, so it is kind of meeting our definition of done, and then we'll go to deploy this model. Okay, and then you apply model management practices. You can see the roles we have called out. So Agile ML process lead, if you try to take an analogy from Scrum, it's like a Scrum Master role, but more than that, because Scrum Master may or may not need to know Kanban and all, but here, as I'll explain in the later few slides, we have actually been doing more Kanban than Scrum. Scrum, as I mentioned earlier, you can't really time box, you can't do sprint planning, a lot of limitations, you can't really apply Scrum as it is for any ML development. Okay, so these are the key roles we have put up in place. We had data engineers, data scientists. Now see why we have kept data scientists on top and product owner here. Okay, so these three roles are little emphasized. So we call it as our role troika: Agile ML process lead, data scientist, and product owner. You might even wonder why we need data scientists as well as product owner. And this has been a lesson learned. We didn't want to start with so many roles, but we needed to. Why? Because what happens practically is data scientists are superhuman kind of guys, or at least that's how they pretend to be. Sorry if anyone is here, not to offend anyone, but that's true, right? Most highly paid job if you even do a Google search in industry. And for a reason, they have a niche, not everyone else has. They know how to help develop ML applications. Not every layman can understand it. Even with my experience, I still don't understand it fully, right? I'll be honest with you guys. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy. It takes very, very long time to understand. So they are expert in that area. Great. But why we can't just expect them to work with the Agile ML process lead and help see a solution being developed? Because their focus mostly has been experimentation, developing with data and all, which is what they love to do. They're passionate about it. It's more like scientists, right? The kind of temperament which scientists have. The challenge happens because you're not doing experimentation unless you are an R&D organization, which many of you would be, but by and large, we are talking about organizations, commercial organizations, which are trying to solve their business problems. So as I said earlier, adopting AI should not be just for heck of it because it's the latest fad in industry, because that other organization has done, we also do it. That's one of the most stupid reasons to do it, unless you are very clear what do you want to achieve from it, how it is going to help you with your business. So that understanding can come with someone called as a product owner only, and it has to have a right balance. So product owner has to be made responsible for the business objective, business outcomes, and then product owner needs to work in tandem with data scientists. Constructive friction, if it has to be, let it be. That's good for the team, because then only they will experiment, fair enough, but only when it helps reaching some business objectives or business outcomes, generating some business outcomes. Okay, so I've just expanded this a bit more in our later slides. So why I have added another circle? So product owner will primarily drive all these activities, as you can see, and sorry, there's one more animation. Yeah, data scientists will drive all data related. So data understanding, data preparation, modeling, evaluation and all. Okay, but data scientists alone is not enough to drive ML application development which meets business outcomes. Our experience. Again, we are not saying that this is the only best way to do. Maybe some of our organizations have been able to do it, fine. We learned it hard way, and this is our approach which we have prescribed with. So, long story short, we have established our own Scrum Ban kind of ways of working to build an ML application. Scrum, we already discussed, doesn't work as it is. Kanban has a lot of benefit because it is a model, it is a method of Agile which helps you work continuously. without need to stop and start again, no time boxing required. Just keep working continuously and just see what kind of activities, what kind of tasks needs to be picked up by team over a period of time. Yeah. So data scientists and data engineers together defines all data related backlog items. Of course, you still need to have a backlog, right? We call it as item backlog. So it will have different type of backlog items, data related backlog items, and then it product owner will prioritize and set up all the business related backlog items as well. Everything needs to be there in backlog. Okay. And then Agile ML process lead will make sure that it is managed properly through a Kanban board, continuously having a clear visibility and managing the flow of work. Okay. So this is what we have learned as the key principles and practices of our Agile method. That Scrum-Ban approach, as I mentioned, a lot of activities keep working, you can't really fix a time box to it. And Troika roles, we call them as Troika roles because they're 3 important roles. No one is senior or junior, they need to work in tandem together. And some of the frameworks like Scaled Agile framework, SAFe and all, you might have seen at every level they define Troika roles. So same approach, it works well in our experience also. Okay, so this is what we had, and I'll just quickly go to highlight one case study which we have built using this approach. So we work for a very prominent healthcare player based in US, who we helped in building a ML solution to predict comorbidities in members. So a lot of different type of data we have used from their database. Historical claims data, member diagnosis data, drug refill history data, different sources of data, right? No one source of data. And they have made it accessible to us so that we do meaningful model development around that kind of data, and we are able to predict comorbidities for at least these type of major diseases like diabetes, kidney related disease and renal disease. Yeah. So we have applied this exact model approach which I have explained in previous slide. We have built almost 85 models to assess the risk of developing comorbidities. Okay, and this has taken 16 weeks more or less to be able to experiment and build so many models with that kind of team structure and approach. And we had been able to achieve 90% accuracy in identifying members with high risk of developing comorbidities and underlying factors. So it works. It worked in our experience, applying Agile pragmatically, not by the book, not by the Scrum guide and all. We experimented, we learned our own ways of applying Agile, and that is what I'm sharing here. It has helped us, and our teams are continuously still experimenting with it. Okay, because I think we are out of time, yeah? So I'll not spend much time. This is just to indicate that Agile DevOps practices have a lot to offer while building ML models. You might have heard a lot of terms like data ops, ML ops, AI ops. That is applying the DevOps ops model in building these applications. Because you need a very structured way to manage data. There are different types of data sets. Then once your models are developed, you need to make sure that models are also version control, and there's a relation established between which data has been used to build which model and which algorithm has been used. So you need these sophisticated practices. We use entire lifecycle tool infrastructure. It is called as Expresso.ai to manage this end to end. So we have CI/CD platform which helps managing data ops operation, CI/CD platform which helps managing ML ops aspect as well. Okay, that's what I just wanted to highlight. And yeah, this is how the other side of the Agile. So not only that we have applied Agile for developing ML applications, we also are conscious that how AI ML techniques can help with regular Agile adoption. So a lot of this you might have seen applying NLP, natural language processing. So there are tools like user story generator.ai which helps you set up initial product backlog. Not again that you want to replace any product or anyone, that should not be the purpose, and that cannot be achieved anyways in my opinion, but these are useful tools for product owners to use. Okay, similarly, this is in product discovery space, but in product development, again, you might have heard code generation tools like GitHub's Copilot. There are enough evidences, even in our experience, that 30% of code can be really usable. In fact, after that, the ChatGPT is nothing new for all of you. I think the kind of revolution it has created and the buzz it has created, people are using it to generate code as well. Accuracy is not ensured, but it is still useful. You'll have to do the verification and all, testing, telemetry analysis, so on and so forth. So I'll leave this here. This is our key summary from our experience. And happy to answer any questions, guys. Sorry if I've taken a little over time.
No worries. Maybe one or two questions can be taken. Any questions? Yeah.
One question regarding some of the problems we have. So, some of the problems where we deal with the complex system, where system is reactive in nature. So in that case, we need a very rapid changes. And in that case, two challenges one we face is that how do we document all those things? And second is that how do we timeline this? We can't timeline, we can't document, we have to keep iterating as fast as possible. So how Agile can help with that?
Yeah, so Agile is really good in that kind of a space. As you might have seen in Stage C's complexity metrics, or even I think there are other models like Davis Snowden's model, because Agile gives you ability to on the fly adjust your approach. So as you said, there might be uncertainty, if I heard you correct. You need to be more reactive in your approach than predictive. So you can actually apply Kanban kind of techniques. They work much better than Scrum kind of model, because Scrum still expects that you have a fair degree of idea what you're gonna do in your next sprint or iteration, right? So what Kanban, the beauty of Kanban kind of Agile techniques is, it doesn't need any kind of presumptions. No requirements at all. I mean, not business requirements, but no prerequisites at all. You can just start applying it wherever you are, and you can still see the benefits. So that's what I'll suggest. How do you documentation? See, documentation again in Agile in general, the spirit of documentation has to be do bare minimum documentation or minimum viable documentation, if you want to call it this way, right? It's not that you don't do documentation, but is it really required? Is it must have? You can't live without it, then yeah, go for it. So that's the spirit of doing the documentation in Agile.
Yes, please. In this cycle that you were showing, there are two aspects for mill models. You have model different iterative.
Yeah.
So how is that inbuilt into your Agile model?
Yeah. So that was one of the toughest part, as I mentioned earlier, because why two aspects are called out very clearly, because we know that when you are dealing with data, you can't really apply the traditional software engineering practices as it is, right? It is stochastic in nature, as I mentioned earlier. So there are different set of techniques which data scientists, data engineers know it better. They go about applying it. So we kind of cap that responsibility to data scientists and their team to keep applying those techniques and iterate as many times they need to iterate. However, for the business functionalities, you still need to keep a strong focus, right? Because ultimately, there's no point in developing these kind of ML models if it does not help you solve a business problem. As I mentioned, for a R&D organization and all, fine, but that's not what most of us are dealing with. Some might be, but by and large, we are still in a business organization, right? So that focus has to be kept with the product owner team only. So there was a close collaboration. As I mentioned, we had different tags on our backlog items. So when you're maintaining a product backlog, this is a data related product backlog item, and this is a business functionality related backlog item. So they go hand in hand together. There are some technical items again, just like in typical Scrum or Agile teams we do. There are technical enabler items, right, which may go and sit in your backlog still. So all three kind of items is still there in backlog. Backlog is still being continuously relooked at it. So some of the ceremonies I didn't call out explicitly is like replenishment. We don't do Scrum planning, but in our model of a Scrum approach, we used to look at the backlog. We do replenishment. Do we have enough work to start working when you're starting every Monday morning? look at it, pull more work if you need to. So that's the approach, whether it is related to data or whether it is related to business functionality or technical stories. Hopefully that answers you.
Tick tock, tick tock. We are already delayed, so sorry for that. Sorry for interruption. All of your tea is waiting. So before going for tea, there is a slido.com. I think now you are already aware about it, what you are supposed to do that. So my humble request, please go on slido.com 4794184, provide the feedback, and I would like to call upon Prithvi. Prithvi, could you please felicitate Ashwini? And I think what a great session. I am still thinking कितना सीखना है, खत्म ही नहीं होती पढ़ाई, हर रोज नई नई टेक्नोलॉजी आ जाती है. Hi. So can we have a photograph?
Thank you.
ये इस प्रोजेक्टर से आ गया.
Yeah, photo is important, otherwise my wife won't even acknowledge I came here. Thank you.
You need to share the photo with date and time as well. Huh?
Yeah,
Otherwise,
of course.
So thank you all. So please go for tea and networking, and very soon we are going to start in next 20 minutes on the main room itself. Thank you. Bye bye.